Hello there, Saman. Nice to see that you have sent us your first set of essays. My name is Ellen. I will be correcting them for you. Let's take a look and see what you had to say here. The topic is about schools being more entertaining, so here's what you wrote. Educating students through entertainment or using conventional methods is a debatable issue. Some people believe that schools should focus only on educating children. However, others, including me, think that it should include entertainment in their curriculum. This essay will discuss the reasons, using an example from research conducted in India, as well as a study done by a prominent university to demonstrate points and support arguments. Okay. So the good news is that the structure of this is good. You've done everything you're supposed to do. You've included a lot of the main points of an introduction that you should include without making it too wordy or too lengthy. However, there are some areas that are a little problematic, and I guess the biggest thing that kind of stuck out for me with this introduction is the grammar. There are a few consistent grammar errors in the paragraph, so I want to talk about them. So what I want to do is I want to read the paragraph again with you and correct some of the grammar. So, So you talk about this being a debatable issue. So the grammar of the sentence from the beginning is wrong. It should be whether students should be educated through entertainment or conventional methods is a debatable issue. Okay? That would have been a better way to say it. So whether students should be educated through entertainment or conventional methods, plural, is a debatable issue. And that was the one thing that was pretty consistent. Your plurals, putting S's at the end of your words, that was missing quite a few times here. Okay, so next sentence. Some people believe that schools should focus only on educating children. However, you didn't need a semicolon here. I'm always a big fan of the semicolon, but here it was used incorrectly. You didn't need anything. Maybe a comma. However, others, comma, including me, comma, think that it should include, now here you had a problem. Look, it should include entertainment in their curriculum. There's no agreement with these pronouns. So, you're saying that schools should focus, so this is what we're talking about, schools. So it should be, some people think that they should include entertainment in their curriculum. That makes more sense because now we know that the they and the their refers to schools. All right, moving on. This essay will discuss the reasons. Okay. I don't know. This essay, fine. This essay will discuss the reasons using examples, S, from research conducted in India, as well as it's either a study or studies, plural, done by a prominent university or prominent universities, if you're going to talk about more than one, to demonstrate points and support arguments. Okay? So that corrects the first paragraph there. Moving on. Firstly, including fun activities while teaching will enable students to have in-depth knowledge of concepts. This is largely because they are heavily engaged and experience it themselves. For example, according to an analysis done in India, get rid of shows. Students who experienced hands-on something. So students who experience hands-on lessons have deeper understanding than those who adopt rote learning. Therefore, entertaining exercises will help students have not insight knowledge of things, but have in-depth knowledge of things. Okay, so a little bit of a vocabulary issue here. This is good. One thing that I really liked about this is that you started by talking about fun activities. This is one place where a lot of people come into problems with this because they start talking about things like engaging lessons and other things, but that's not necessarily this, entertaining, and that's your key word here. So it's important to understand what entertaining is. Fun, enjoyment, amusement. All right, these are all words that should be part of this essay. So I'm glad that you used fun in the beginning. However, When you talked about hands-on, there wasn't really anything telling us here that this hands-on is also fun, because something can be hands-on, but it can be very annoying or very boring or not enjoyable at all, okay, if the subject isn't interesting or if the activity itself isn't enjoyable. So it's important to remember here that we're talking about fun, enjoyment, entertainment, amusement, games, this kind of thing, okay? Play as well. So that's what you need to be talking about. So the hands-on thing could have been okay if you had just linked it into the ideas that I just expressed. All right, moving on. Secondly, entertaining programs can develop mental health of pupils. This is due to the fact that children are involved in exercises that require, without the D, different types of engagement, no S, where they can be creative and artistic, which improves their cognitive skills. Okay, let me just read that one more time to make sure I understood what you're saying. Entertainment. Okay, fine. So, for instance, a study was conducted by Oxford University. It states that those who learned through these modern learning programs have higher intellectual levels than others. Thus, these programs enhance their cognitive ability, while traditional methods make them good only at cramming. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of things in this paragraph. First of all, there was a misuse of the word mental health here, because this whole paragraph was about intellectual ability, cognitive skills, and mental health is something considerably different. So that's the wrong term here. Now, apart from that, you use this again, different type of engagement, creative and artistic, but there was no mention of, these ideas that I talked about before: amusement, enjoyment, entertainment, fun, laughter, games, play, okay? Because think about this: if you're a kid who is not particularly artistic or creative, you are not going to find creative and artistic activities enjoyable or entertaining. So it's important to remember these are the words that we want to be focusing on here. Okay, moving on. To conclude from the examples and arguments given, I firmly believe that modern fun education will help students to possess skills and knowledge that cannot be gained, not done. You don't do knowledge, you gain knowledge, or as you said here, possess, through a traditional approach. It is predicted that entertaining education will be incorporated in school courses in the near future. Okay, so this is very good, especially for your first attempt. It's great. You've used the template really nicely, and that's wonderful to see. You did a good job of using it throughout, so that's really well done. The other things that need to be worked on and that I want you to think about in your next set of essays is, of course, some of the grammar, which wasn't really a huge issue. I mean, there were little things, but they were consistent. So it didn't reduce the communicative effect of your essay, but it was pretty consistent that there were some errors with it. So that's one thing. But more importantly to me, and this is something that I really want you to consider, is that you need to make sure that your task achievement is on point and that you're answering the question that they are asking you and not something related or something that you think that they're asking you. But it's really important to spend some time before you start to write and really analyze the question. Okay, so with that, let's take a look at your second essay. All right, so now let's read about doing an enjoyable activity with a child. Here's what you said. Although some parents think their child's skills can be enhanced through fun activities, others believe reading is the best approach. In my opinion, entertaining activities help, because you've got plural here, help in their mental and physical growth. This essay will discuss reasons using examples from the education system in Sweden and a study conducted by a child health care center to demonstrate points and support arguments. Okay, so fine. Just those little grammatical things. Firstly, games play an important role in the development of a child. This is largely because when children are engaged in them, why is it them? Because you're talking about games, plural. So when children are engaged in them, then they become more creative and develop imagination, which is key to building mental and emotional muscles. For example, the education system in Sweden is applauded because they focus more on fun tasks to enhance the mental skills of young ones. Therefore, play is, 'cause look, there's a difference between plays, okay, which is like what we see in a theater, and play, which is always without the S. And I think this is what you mean here. Okay, so play is crucial to improve skills and abilities. That here you want to say who they is. Who is they? Because you just said plays, so it becomes confusing. That children need while growing. Okay, now this was a good paragraph, although I have to be honest with you. If there was one thing I could have changed here, and I would have changed here, I would have given a different example, because it didn't really seem to fit the logic of what you were saying. It didn't fit in terms of the progression of the ideas in your paragraph. So you said that games are important, and then you said children become more creative and develop imagination. And this is important because it helps us become more mentally fit, I guess you could say. So what would have made sense here is some sort of an example of an activity children can do to be more creative and develop imagination. Okay, or something else, rather than talking about Sweden, which seemed to be really just come out of nowhere, something like that would have been better. So you could have said, for example, studies have found that when children play board games and video games with their parents 2 hours per week, they perform better on psychometric tests than children who do not. All right, something like that would have made more sense and felt more appropriate here to make the progression of your ideas a little more sensible. Alrighty, so let's move on. Secondly, pushing infants to read without their desire can make them more repulsive to it. I don't know about this word repulsive. I'm not entirely convinced that that's the right word here. When they grow up. This is, and this too, without their desire. Some of this wording is a little awkward here. So, you know what? Why don't we try to fix that? Secondly, pushing infants to read against their wishes can make them more, how about more defiant? Or can make them less willing to read when they grow up. Something like that, something just a little simpler. This is due to the fact that if they are unwilling, then they will come to, this is the wrong word, not abominate it, and be unable to develop an interest later on. For example, a study done by Child Health Care Center in India shows that most teenagers who feel not repellent, again wrong word, to reading are the ones who were forced by their parents from a young age. Thus, instead of forcing, them, comma, let them take an interest in it naturally. Okay. Let's see. You know what? I want to read your conclusion first, and then we'll talk about this paragraph a little bit more. To conclude from the examples and arguments given, I believe that a non-reading approach should be adopted, which is essential for children's, without the A, overall growth. And this is a little strange here. And they should be allowed to develop an interest in reading by themselves. All right, that works a little better. This is a little awkward here. Okay, now that's fine. It's fine. But what I want to talk about here a little bit is this paragraph, this one about the problems with reading. I kind of struggled with it because I feel like it's rather off topic. All right, so what is this essay asking? What is the task asking you to talk about? They're basically comparing two things. They're comparing an enjoyable activity and reading to see which one can develop better skills and more creativity. Okay, that's a rephrasing of this. So they're saying that if you do an enjoyable activity, your child will have better skills and be more creative than if the kid just read. Okay, so I really feel like this paragraph here is off topic. No one is talking about pushing children to read. That wasn't the question. The question is reading better to develop skills and creativity than these other activities are? Okay, so talking about why kids will hate reading if they're forced to do it is really off topic. Okay, what you could have talked about is how helpful reading is in developing creativity and in developing skills. Like, what kind of skills does reading develop? Okay, so you could have talked about that. Or you could have talked about the fact that a lot of people think that reading is really good, and yet you're not convinced that reading is better than any other activity for skills development and for creativity. All right, so you could have done those things instead. Now, here, let's talk about this paragraph. You talked about creative, you talked about develop imagination, you talked about mental skills. Okay, you kind of lumped everything together in both paragraphs. One way of doing this really well is spending one paragraph talking about skills. Those could be any skills you can think of, like motor skills, hand-eye coordination. I don't know, there are tons of skills that kids develop. Things like cooperation, teamwork, I don't know. Okay, that's just some of them. And then you could spend another paragraph talking about creativity. Okay, which you kind of did, but you kind of just threw everything in there together. So again, for me, the thing here is task achievement. Make sure that you really understand the question, that you really think it through and understand all the nuances, because a lot of these questions are a little more complicated than they first appear when you look at them. And then, of course, some of that grammar and some of the vocabulary. Here you had some vocabulary problems here, especially in this paragraph. All right, so now let's talk about what your next step is. The next step is for you to correct these essays based on this video. And send that back to us. You're also going to send back an error correction list. It's a list where you're going to write down the mistakes you've made in each of your essays, and next each mistake what the correct version would be. Along with those two things, you're going to send us, of course, another set of essays applying everything you've been learning. So go ahead and get all of that started. Let's meet back here with your next set, and I'll be waiting, so good luck.